The Auburn Tigers are victorious on the road once again in the SEC, this time taking down the Ole Miss Rebels in their home territory by the score of 92-82. We're going to break down everything. Of course, that score a little bit, the stats, and the storylines. Let's get into it with our post-game live stream right now. Warrig, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of E2C Network Live, where we cover the Auburn experience. The Auburn experience to us is all about Auburn sports, Auburn culture, Auburn family stuff. An easier way to say it. If it's orange and blue, it's what we do. So thank you so much for joining us and what we're going to do on this particular live stream. We are reacting, talking about, discussing, breaking down, however you'd like to describe it, Auburn's latest win on the 2024-25 season on the road in Oxford, taking down the Ole Miss Rebels 92-82. Your Tigers are victorious and have yet again shown that they still are deserving of that number one team in the land title. Johni Broome still is deserving of that college basketball player of the year title thus far, and so many other things that we can dive into, discuss today. So jump on into the chat if you're watching live and participate with us. Let us know what you are thinking about, and certainly we'll do our best to interact with you throughout the show as we get into these things. Let me start us off with our big three things that we always discuss: the score, the big stat, and the big storyline. The score, of course, as we already mentioned, 92-82, a 10-point victory for Auburn over Ole Miss in Oxford. The big stat that I have for you is 50%. 50% from the three-point arc on the road. That is incredible. It's much harder to do that on the road. If you do that at home, you can understand that in the confines of Neville, but to do that on the road will certainly put you in position to win a basketball game in the SEC. 50% from the three-point arc. And then your big storyline, the Tigers, as we mentioned, are still undefeated on the road in the SEC in this year, where this conference is the best in college basketball. So there it is, the score, the stat, and the storyline to get things started for you this evening. As you're coming into the stream, do us a huge favor. If you're watching live, especially, you can participate this on the replay, however you'd like to. If you're just listening to the audio, you can go ahead and smash that like button, share it out, let people know that we're live, say hello as well, where you're watching from. That's always a good thing to let people know where you're checking in from. And we'll do our best to bring up some of your topics and conversations tonight. Won't be able to say hello to everybody that's here this evening, but do know that we appreciate each and every one of you being here to celebrate this win and be excited about everything that is going on. So typically how we do this thing is we'll walk through team stats. We'll walk through some individual stats first. We'll talk about the storylines amongst all of that. And then towards the end of our show, we'll move into more of a overall discussion about where we're at in the program, what's next, all that kind of stuff. But we'll spend the majority of our time this evening focusing on this 92-82 win. Number one Auburn beats number 23 Ole Miss in their home territory. So let's get into it and start discussing those few things. I want to start the show off, as we typically do, with getting some interaction out of all of you. I'd like for you to type two things in the chat. POTG, player of the game, and the name of that player. Just do that as a single thing so that we can keep track and see what the chat collectively is thinking about. And obviously can kind of get a pretty good gauge of where everybody's mindset is at. And once again, as I feel like I'm saying a lot of times, you probably have a case to be made for a lot of different players for Auburn to be player of the game. You probably could start with Johni Broome. You probably could go 1,000 different places. I think there were some incredible performances by a lot of Auburn players today that are definitely worthy of at least, even if not a player of the game type of thing, certainly a recognition in some way from you all. So please do that in the chat right now. A lot of you are already starting to do that. I do know, and Corey's trying to get me started already about the fouls. Let me start off by saying this. I want us to be a little bit different as an Auburn, smaller, little family within the Auburn family. And let's not focus so much about the fouls. They are what they were. And certainly it was not good. If you look at the fouls in total, there were 24 on Auburn, 18 on Ole Miss. And actually, now that I'm looking at it, it's I had that wrong. It's is that correct? That cannot be correct. Yes. 18 on Ole Miss, 24 on Auburn. I thought it was a little bit larger than that. Certainly, the referees made their presence felt. They should never affect the outcome of the game. But no matter if you win or lose, you should never be in a position for the refs to affect the outcome of the game for you, as I always say. So we won't spend any really time focusing on that, but I certainly see that already coming up in the chat, as I expected it to be to do that as well. Neil says, I really thought Auburn was going to lose today. Glad I was wrong. I will agree with you in the sense that I was a little bit nervous about this one. I think as Auburn fans, we start to kind of feel like, where is that roller coaster ride going to start taking that dip for us a little bit? And this would be a good opportunity. Ole Miss is one of the best in the SEC. They are the only team to have beaten Alabama at Alabama this year. So that in and of itself is recognition for respect, for taking them seriously. And boy, did they give us everything and then some. Certainly, I think once Auburn got the lead, they never lost it. Yeah, there were only 2 lead changes, obviously tied at the start of the game, and then we got the lead back or from them when they took a little bit of a lead early on. But it did feel at times that this could have been one of those moments where certainly we, unfortunately, could have taken a hit that we necessarily didn't need to take tonight. All right, we got a bunch of player of the games already rolling in here. I've got a Denver Jones. I've got a CBM. I've got a Dylan Cardwell, CBM, of course, a couple of Brooms, Denver Jones. So as you can see, a lot of people have a lot of opinions about who should be the player of the game because there are a lot of performances that are worthy of discussing that. So certainly, let's dive into that a little bit. You have 5 players in double digits, and one of them got it at the very end of the game. And I think I'm going to start there because I believe I'm going to give him my player of the game honor because of such a well-rounded and productive game. He is not the highest scorer. He's actually number 5 in that double digit list of players who scored in double digits. But I'm giving my player of the game, frankly, to Dylan Cardwell. Dylan today has 10 points, 3 for 6 from the excuse me. I'm all choked up about it too. 3 for 6 from the field. He doesn't make his only 3-pointer that he shot, but he had to do that on a desperation. He is 4 for 5 as a big man from the free throw line, 13 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 personal fouls, and 25 minutes play. And he probably had to play even a little bit more tonight when Broom got a little bit, his shoulder tweaked a little bit. I know, shocker. Janai continues to be like pummeled down there and get injuries. I just feel so bad for him. But anyway, Dylan today, I think is one of those guys that you have to give an incredible performance star to, a player of the game honor if you choose to do so, like me. One of the things that doesn't show up on the stats is what I talk about a lot with him is how poised, how calm he is when he gets an offensive rebound, which is quite often, and turns around, maintains control of the ball, doesn't panic and try to just rush it out of there to reset the thing. He finds somebody open to set them up for a 3-pointer. I think it was to either Denver or Miles, which is probably a good pick there. He did a great job of doing that yet again in this game. A couple of alley-oops. So I want to give my player of the game to Dylan Cardwell. So many of you all out there certainly have valid points for a lot of the other names that you brought up. The easiest one that you could make this evening, let's talk about Janai Broom. Yes, Janai did tweak. I think it was his left shoulder. I can't remember which one it is now off the top of my head, but it got kind of chopped down in a bang play underneath the basket, and it seemed to bother him a little bit. His initial free throw attempt right after that was not very strong, but he didn't end up making up the second one. So thankfully, he was able to play the rest of the game. He didn't seem too encumbered by that. I think he was okay, but certainly we all breathed a little bit of a gasp when that first happened. Third time now we've seen Janai have some type of injury enough to make him catch up and react. And then certainly to see him go out there and continue to put up the numbers that he's doing is very impressive given what he's been through, what he is fighting against, what the pressure that is upon his shoulders for this team, for what he could potentially accomplish individually this year. Certainly that's out there. So his stat line tonight, 20 points. He is 50% from the field, 7 for 14, 2 for 2 from the 3-point arc. So 100% there this evening, 4 for 7 from the free throw line, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 personal fouls. He did have 3 turnovers in this game, but that was kind of a team thing this evening, 31 minutes of play. So if you want to just talk about sheer numbers, he by far and away has the most impressive with rebounds and assists. He is tied for second in assists. That's one big thing, and I debated about making that my big stat. We'll get there, was the assist. Tonight, I think that was a big reason Auburn was able to be as successful as they were today at Ole Miss. The rest of your top 5 scores, all in double digits. We covered the top, we covered the bottom. So Janai at 20. Right behind him was Chad Baker-Mazara, who also has a very strong case for player of the game. 18 points on 2 rebounds and pretty solid across the board. Commits a lot of fouls, but such was the case as we discussed for basically everybody in this game because there were a lot of fouls being called. Right after Chad in third place would be Denver Jones with 16. Denver, I think, was in my position to be my player of the game until Dylan made that double-double after seeing what he did holistically, more than just the stats he put up. I had to give him to that. But Denver, I think, reminds people there's this conversation that really isn't, in my opinion, productive. And it needs to kind of not be silenced, but just needs to kind of go away for a little bit about Pettiford should start over Denver. And while that's not taking anything away from Pettiford, Denver tonight shows you why he is capable of more than what people sometimes anticipate out of him. So tonight, 16 points for him is an incredibly good night for him. Just saw my phone camera battery's a little low. I hope we're good because I'm not going to mess with the camera. I think we'll be fine. Should have plugged that one in there, Kyle. That's the things that you get with this show sometimes. Miles Kelly, 15 points. He rounds us out. Obviously, Cardwell really rounds us out, but we already talked about him. He had some clutch, and I mean some clutch three-pointers and jumpers this evening. Again, reminding people he's more than just a three-point shooter. So Miles Kelly, there it is. 5 guys in double digits. And let me point out to you that it is all the starters. It just hit me. I hope you recognize what I just said is that all your starters were in double digits. If that happens, folks, in more games, we're going to be just fine no matter who we play. Now, certainly you want to continue to see more and more from the bench, but that is so impressive to see all of your starters in double digits. The person who has the best game from the bench is Tahad Pettiford with an incredible highlight dunk from on a give and go situation that we got to give him credit for this evening. 9 points for him. He makes all his free throws. Okay, shooting overall percentages wise. He has 5 assists. He does lead the way, so you certainly want to see him as one of your main point guards doing that. So he has a pretty impressive day across the wholeness of his other stats. Other points scored tonight. Jaheim Hudson had 2 points. Chaney Johnson had 2 points. I thought Chaney was about to go on a tear there when Janai had to recover from that injury or that tweak a little bit, but only 2 points for him tonight. So everybody scores except for Chris Moore, but again, we value Chris Moore out there because he does much more than score out there for the Tigers. So that is your individual stats, everybody that played. What haven't we talked about in the individual side of things that you feel is worthy of bringing up? We talked about the highlight reel from Pettiford with his dunk. I think that's probably got to be your play of the game. Is there any other play of the game that I'm forgetting about that we should recognize? It was nice to see Turtle out there again, getting a few more minutes and not just, actually putting some points up there and stuff. So that's actually a huge thing there. But I just can't get over how impressive it is that all the starters tonight score into double digits. And Dylan's was very, very, very close to not being to fruition, but that's what happens when seniors get out there. They make their free throws and they get rewarded in that way. You're going to really see me talking about a lot this year. WT, here we go. That skipped ahead. Grossly underrated the talent of Broom and his ability to quickly pick up the open player and get the ball to them. Yeah, I think obviously when you look at your star player, everybody thinks of points and focuses on that. But what truly makes great players if they can do that, but do the intangible stuff. And I would make that argument for a guy like Dylan as well. He certainly doesn't score like Janai Broom does, but he is very proficient in so many other areas of the game. But Janai is as well. And I think that's why it's not a question that Janai deserves to be in the National Player of the Year situation, because he can just take over a game. He does it by scoring, but he does it by rebounding as well. So he has 12 rebounds this evening. Let's look at his breakdown overall. He has 6 defensive rebounds and 6 offensive rebounds. So he is equally effective getting the ball on the defensive side of things, which is where you would expect, but getting them on the offensive side of the boards as well, creating himself more opportunities, creating others more opportunities. And that's what makes him such a well-rounded and such a highly valuable player. Devin giving some love to Dylan's one-handed slam was pretty cool. So that I knew there was one more play out there we should have talked about. And I think when you couple like that highlight reel, and he has the one-handed slam, but he had 2 alley-oops on the day. I think here's what you need to anticipate. Dylan's going to have an alley-oop. He's going to have a few block shots. He's going to block a few shots, and he's going to have an alley-oop in a game. That was the highlight reel, I think, in the Tahad did what he did. So absolutely incredible to see there. Tommy, we did already mention the thing about Tahad. No, I think that Denver shows tonight. I think that's not really productive talk. Really, it's we have the starters all scored in double digits tonight, and I think that shows you right there why they all continue to start. But Tahad will continue to play and continue to contribute and grow and learn under some very talented upperclassmen that are doing an outstanding job together out there on the court as the starters. Individual stuff, again, if we haven't covered something that you would like to about their particular performance in this game, please do bring it up. I don't want to miss out on anything like that. Let's move more towards some team discussions now. Just a breakdown of the score for you in the first half for those of you that need a reminder. 41-34, Auburn went in, and may I remind you that Janai Broome knocked down that amazing 3, basically a buzzer beater, to send us into the half on a high note. Some very key moments today with 3-pointers, as we talked about in that 50% mark. That was the key stat for us in this game as we opened up talking about. In the second half, Auburn outscores them 51-48, so much more scoring in the second half. And both teams nearly scored 50 points in the second half. Can I remind you there was a game where Auburn had where everybody was struggling to get into the 50s or even close to 60? That tells you something, the level of things, how it ramped up and how Auburn had to respond to some pressure here on the road. So overall, your score 92-82. In the team stats, you know where we're going, folks. Saddle up, the big 3 stats. Let's see what it tells us from this game. I bet it's going to show that Auburn could have made this a little bit easier on themselves, but certainly took care of business in most of these areas. Now, free throws, turnovers, and rebounds are where we focus our time. The free throw percentage tonight for Auburn ends up being 78. It was okay to kind of bad to start off the game, but as they got more opportunities, seniors do what seniors do, and or upperclassmen do what and make their free throws. Shout out to Tahad Pettiford for playing like a senior out there and knocking down some clutch threes in some very crucial moments, as I continue to talk about. Lots of crucial moments tonight. So 78%, my high water mark is 80. I'll deal with it on the road in the SEC against a number 23 Ole Miss. I'll take that. Auburn wins that category. They only get 69% of their free throws this evening. Turnovers. Auburn wins that. Auburn loses that one. And they had a terrible start in this area. I think they had a quick 5 within like the first few minutes of the game. The fact that it's only 12 after the way they started, I think says something, how they kind of locked it down, but still not what you want to see. They lose that 12-9. Rebounds. Auburn did quickly do what they normally do, take down their opponent in the rebounding category and kept and maintained that lead 41-30, a significant win there. So Auburn wins 2 out of the 3. You couple that with some other things that we'll dive into and already have. You can understand why Auburn was able to push that out to a 10-point win on the road. And let's just go ahead and talk about this. Respect to Ole Miss, if it hasn't been expressed enough, it should be clear. I think we said something. This double-digit win, because it's 92-82, is not indicative of how close this game was the entirety of the game. They had the lead. They kept it close. Auburn really couldn't break away. I would be interested to know when Auburn got their first 10-point lead. I think it was one other time before this, but I don't know that they had a lead bigger than 10. I could be wrong on that. I could be wrong. Let's see here. Sam says winning the game by 10 despite shooting 20 less Fritos. Love the typo. Is really impressive. Yes. Taking care of business in some of the areas will help you certainly in that category. But you make your free throws down the stretch, you'll put yourself into position to win the game. Not only does Auburn shoot well from the three-point arc, they shoot well from the field. 48%. It's only 2% less than their three-point percentage. So just an outstanding day shooting on the road in a tough environment. Auburn was efficient. Auburn was poised, I think, in some very tough situations, and it showed tonight in some of their percentages. We have talked about free throws and turnovers and rebounds. Let's look at a few other things. OleMiss wins in the category by 1 of points over turnovers or off turnovers. Second chance points, Auburn barely wins that, 17-14. Bench points. Let me park it here for just a second. This one was surprising to me. For a lot of the game, Auburn really was in single digits there. And we talked about it. Tahad is the only one really tonight that makes significant scoring off of the bench for Auburn. So only 9 points. Well, actually, that can't be right. Oh, let me make sure I've got that right on there. Bench points is 13. There we go. I was reading the wrong thing. So 13 points for them. Traditionally, this is an area we see Auburn doing very well in. And so that's a little bit interesting. You wonder if there was a little bit more bench production tonight, would this have gotten more, a little bit easier for Auburn down the stretch? And I certainly think so, because that's something we traditionally do. They win in points in the paint, which is kind of shocking that we won rebounding and things that kind of lead towards that. They won on fast break points. They won on blocks. They won on steals. But here's the big thing, 22-11 on assist. So the big things that you're going to see tonight, I think, are key reasons that Auburn wins is going to be your shooting prowess this evening, especially from the free throw line and three-point arc. But the big stat to me, I think right here, now that we've talked about it some more, 22-11 in assists, Auburn beats Ole Miss. And breaking that down individually, as we talked about, Pettiford leads the way with 5, but you've got 3 players tied with 4. That's Janai Broome, Denver Jones, Dylan Cardwell. That's 2 centers, y'all, leading in assist. That is huge. Literally 2 big guys leading in assist. So that's why I think that's the big stat now that I've analyzed it a little bit more. Okay, we have walked through individual stats. We have walked through the team stats and some of the storylines. I am sure that we have not hit everything, but certainly you all can tell us in the live chat what we have missed. Let's dive into a few of those things. I see a couple things I want to point out on the back end of the show here. We'll cover maybe things we've missed about this game, but we'll also look ahead to what's coming up next. Before we do that, though, let's talk about what you need to anticipate here at E2C Network. What we got coming up next for you. Shows this Sunday evening, tomorrow, for those of you that are watching live or shortly after. The Auburn Experience, our live podcast recording, is going to be at 9 Eastern time, always on Sundays. Episode 112. We'll talk about Auburn sports, Auburn culture, Auburn family, me and Austin back together. Join us for the live chat, and we'll do a Q&A time as well at the end if you'd like to join us for that. If you like these post-game streams, we got more for you. Oklahoma back in Neville Arena. That'll be a fun one for the first time as SEC opponents. Join us back in Neville Arena. Well, the team, we won't be there, but we'll be in studio after the game. Wednesday night, we've got Auburn Family Night live call-in show. You tell us what we talk about when we talk about it. Join us for that at 9 Eastern time on Wednesday evening. And I want to remind you of our friends at Alumni Hall. Please do check them out. You can support us by supporting them. Get yourself some new Auburn gear there. In fact, if you'll look at the shirt I'm wearing in the stream when I pull it back up, that's actually an Alumni Hall basketball shirt. It's one of my favorites. So do check them out. Use our link in our profile description and our description here on YouTube. It'll get you to our affiliate link, and you can support them and us at the same time. All right. What haven't we talked about? What haven't we discussed? Let's dive into it. One thing that Michael wanted to give a shout out to, and I'll pull it up right now. Love that the Auburn fans showed up in Oxford with "It's great to be an Auburn Tiger" chant. This hasn't been just an "Hey at Ole Miss" thing. This has been a constant thing that has happened at a lot of our away games. Auburn fans are showing up. Now, it's much easier for the large contingency of fans that are in Alabama to take a trip over to Ole Miss or Mississippi State or things like that. But you're seeing them, being heard at South Carolina. You're seeing them being heard down in LSU. I think there was a large group of fans from Texas that came over to that one. So it is a reoccurring theme. I'm sure a lot of opposing fans are having their time with that, being annoyed with that we get our chant going in the middle of all that. But it is certainly something that you want to give props to the team for giving them a reason to do it, but props to the fans for showing up and showing out as they always tend to do. Let's see here. Tommy is still celebrating February 15th. We got a lot more though, sir. 2 weeks left of basketball before we get there, but certainly that is an exciting matchup that'll be down the way. Let's see here. Jacob says, Ole Miss played extremely aggressive on D. And I think that is what cut our bench production. That's our CJ or Tahad's forte. Did I read that correctly? Anyway, our off guards were recipients of that tonight. I certainly would agree with you that aggressive, difficult, frustrating at times. This is a very good basketball team. Do not lose sight of that. Ole Miss is ranked for a reason. This is a quad one win again for a reason. Let me take this second to maybe talk about this narrative that I'm seeing out there. I do like to do this from time to time when it comes up, and it doesn't matter if it's about a sport or another topic for Auburn outside of sports, but I notice a lot of times that narratives start to percolate and becomes regurgitated and reproduced by a lot of people. And I don't think sometimes that we think through what we're saying. There's been a lot of focus on this idea that Auburn is somehow playing down now in SEC play. And while you might be able to point to some figures and say, yes, individually in the game, like for instance, in this game, the bench points were a little bit lower. And as Jacob did a second ago, pointed out, there would be a reason for that, or could be a reason for that. But there has been, in my opinion, very few reasons to think about Auburn playing down in SEC play. Why is that? Or playing down to their opponent. It's hard to play down to an opponent and opponents in the SEC across the board that are the best in college basketball. This is not a debate. I'm not an SEC rah-rah guy. This is just the facts. The SEC has the most whole teams across the board. That's the reason why you were seeing numbers as high as 13 in how many teams the SEC was going to put into the tournament. But this narrative that is percolating out there that somehow Auburn is struggling more or is not playing as well against the SEC, it could be that they're just playing better competition. And I know what I'm saying. I know how much we preached and talked about this non-conference schedule, and I agree that it was the toughest that probably Auburn, at least in my lifetime, has ever faced, and how successful they were with it is incredible. But that should say something. If it was that incredible in non-conference play and we dominated there, and we're getting over here to the SEC and we already know from other facts out there that they're the best, it's not really struggling. You're just playing stiffer competition. So I think that narrative out there is a little bit, it's not that it's like every part of it's incorrect. Certainly there's probably areas that Auburn could be doing better, but I certainly don't agree that just because recently when we're playing the best competition that things are a little bit tighter, that Auburn is somehow playing down. Either way, it's just a small thing that I wanted to bring up because I'm seeing that pop up a lot in different places. The reality is, let's just celebrate Auburn doing really well against good competition, regardless of who it is. The results matter the most. Okay. Anyway, there was my little, I thought I was going to talk about that, and that gave me a great segue into this. Devin says Auburn has more quad one away wins than 362 teams have quad one wins. Unreal. That is an incredible stat. That's pretty awesome. That is really good. Tommy points out Ole Miss is a tournament team. If you saw, they had 13 teams in the tournament and 9 of them all within the top 8 seeds. Yeah, they are. SEC is just great. Let's see here. Anything else that we need to discuss here on the show? Yeah, and this is what, Jacob, that wasn't really directed at you, the discussion about that. I just used you as a jumping off point to discuss that. I've been wanting to bring that up on a show, just needed something to segue into it. So you were the victim in the show. Let's see. It basically was upset with their fans that sold tickets to Auburn fans because they made such a presence. You're saying the Ole Miss fans were? Yeah, listen, and I think you're talking about the Duke thing and all that stuff. We've seen that happen a lot. Auburn fans are going out of their way to show up for their team, and it's putting a lot of other teams to shame, not just because of their road travels, but because of that the fans are just so excited and showing out for this. All right, so final questions, comments, topics. This is the last chance for you on the show, kind of tying a bow on everything. Again, bringing it back around. Your score, 92-82. Auburn wins on the road. That's your big storyline. An SEC road win, 5-0 there. The Tigers are victorious. Another quad one win. You could just type that down however you want to. The big stat that we started off the show was the 50% 3-point percentage, which certainly is a big, humongous factor in this game. But I also looked at that assist, and I just love seeing that, not just as a team stat, how much we doubled them up, but how it's across the board. Guards, big men, sharing the ball, being good teammates. This team is outstanding. And certainly we need to let Jacob bring this up. Turtle and SEMO appreciation comment. I would say the same for even Chaney, who doesn't have a great scoring night, but we get to talk about him a lot. Do not forget about the players that most people would consider role players. They are there for a reason. They get the time for the reason that the coach sees fit. And certainly you can find plenty of reasons to be happy with both of their plays. So I do love giving appreciation comments to every single one of these guys because you are watching an incredible basketball team, one of the best that I have ever watched, and currently still the very best in the nation. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us and being part of our little family within the Auburn family. Until we talk to you again, War Eagle.